Good Monday morning. Members will please take their seats. Good morning. Members will please take your seats. We've got several items we have to get to today. So we'll never get finished if we don't get started. The hour for convening having arrived. All members will please take their seats. Mr. Clerk, will you please ring the bell? We're going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Not quite. I see several of you here that haven't voted. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. Doorkeepers, please close the doors and keep them closed. Before the representative introduces the chaplain of the day, I want to remind you all and inform you that Representative Tish Nagise is at ICU in Piedmont Hospital. She had a kidney stone removed and is not doing so great after surgery. So our prayers should be with the representative. I'll also let you know that Representative Glaze's husband is undergoing a medical procedure this morning. Let's make sure we keep both of these families, these individuals, in our thoughts and our prayers. As is our custom, we will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the lady from the 141st House District, Representative Carolyn Hughley. Representative Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ladies and gentlemen of the House, I have the honor this morning of introducing our chaplain of the day, and she is the state chaplain of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She has with her today her daughter, Tiara McGrew, and let's greet her. Stand, Tiara, and let us greet you. Evangelist Patty Rose McGrew attended Jackson State University, where she received a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. She also holds a Master of Science in Mental Health Counseling and a Graduate Certificate in Nonprofit Management, both obtained from Walden University. She is a licensed associate professional counselor. She is currently employed as the residential program director at Elks Atmore Incorporated in Conyers, Georgia. And this is a residential facility for girls aged 12 to 21 who are in foster care and provides mental health counseling to individuals and families and groups at Interlink Counseling. Patty McGrew is a member of One Accord Community Church of God in Christ in Decatur, Georgia, and she is the jurisdictional marshal for the Georgia Cosmopolitan Fellowship of Churches. In addition to her membership in Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, she's also the second vice president of the New Rock chapter of Top Ladies of Distinction. She takes great pride in her personal relationship with Jesus Christ, her role as a wife to her husband Terry of 27 years, and of course, she loves being mother to her 2 children. So you've already met Tiara, and she also has another son. She has a son, Trey, who's a junior at Jackson State University. So greet her warmly as she comes, Evangelist Patty McGrew.
Good to have you. Thank you.
Good morning. To the Speaker, John Burns, to Representative Carolyn Hughley, to the General Assembly, and to my Senator, Tanya Anderson, and my Representative, Doreen Carter, and to my sorors, the dynamic, distinguished, and devastating ladies of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am humbled and honored to be here today. Luke chapter 12, verse 48b says, "For unto whom much is given, of him shall much be required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more." But I like the Message Bible translation. It says, "Great gifts, great responsibilities. Greater gifts, greater responsibilities." This message is not only to the assembly, but it is to each and every one of us that is in this room today. You, the assembly, have been blessed, afforded, and chosen with this awesome opportunity to represent and serve the citizens of the state of Georgia. Upon assuming this role and taking the oath to serve came great responsibility. What are those responsibilities, you may ask? Well, I'm glad you did. I know that you're looking at me and probably saying, I know my responsibilities. I'm aware of what it is that I'm supposed to be doing, what I was elected to do. But let me just share these 3 points with you. The first responsibility is to listen. In James 1:19, we are admonished to be quick to hear and slow to speak. Listen to understand with the intent not to answer or to rebut. Solomon admonished us in Proverbs 4:7, "Wisdom is the principal thing, but in all thy getting, get an understanding." Listen to understand your constituents. Listen to understand the events and the experiences in their lives that have shaped their perspective. Listen to the issues that they feel passionate about. Listen with an open mind to those across the aisles and those who may have differing views than you. This will help you to arrive at the best decision for all citizens of the state of Georgia. Listen to understand with the unique needs of the citizens in rural South Georgia, to the urban streets of Atlanta, to the suburban streets of Brookhaven, although they may not be your constituents. Your second responsibility is to leave a legacy. Proverbs 13:22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children." So the decisions that you are deliberating and making today are not just about you and me, not about my children, but children afar off. As you deliberate and pass legislation, remember that they have a lasting impact on generations to come. Leave a legacy of passing legislation to provide a strong educational system that includes safe schools, a legacy of affordable health care and medical access to all Georgians, a strong infrastructure, laws on gun control, laws against hate crimes, racial profiling, and police brutality, and a legacy of protecting the voting rights for all citizens. Leave a legacy that funds mental health care for Georgians and ensure that our most vulnerable population, our children that are in foster care and the elderly, are properly funded and cared for. Leave a legacy of passing legislation for a livable wage. Leave a legacy of fair and impartial policies that will be impactful and felt from Dalton to Savannah, from Albany to LaGrange. Leave a legacy of a good name. Proverbs 22:1 says, a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. Leave a legacy so that when your name is mentioned in these hollow halls, it is associated with good and one that has effectuated change for all Georgians. And finally, the third responsibility is to simply lead with love. The Christ-like love in which the Bible says that by this will all men know that you are his disciples. It is your love one for another. That compelling love that will compel us to take on the causes of others and see beyond gender, race, creed, color, religion, and sexual orientation to ensure that all Georgians have a voice. The kind of love and compassion that will provide adequate housing and resources to the homeless population. After all, Jesus is love and said to us, what you do to the least, you do unto him. Then put your love in action. What does it mean to put love in action? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said this, love in action is doing the right thing at the right time, in the right spirit, completely given over to a power that is beyond our own, even and perhaps most especially when the risks are very great. The risks today are as great as they have ever been. Now is the time to take that much that you have been entrusted with and to work cooperatively with one another and love, leading us all to a better Georgia. Let us pray. Oh, gracious and eternal God, we thank you for this day because this is the day that you have made and we choose to rejoice in it and be glad. We thank you for the multitude of blessings that you have bestowed upon us. We are grateful that we live in a country where we are free to practice and express our religious and political beliefs without persecution. God, it is in you that we trust and recognize that we can do nothing of and in ourselves and our own strength. We ask today that you will look upon us and have mercy on us according to your tender mercies. We ask that you bless and keep every representative and senator, protect them and give them courage, wisdom, and strength to lead. I pray that as they serve and have undertaken this great task, that you will provide for them and their families. We pray today that unity will prevail and godly love will be exemplified by every member. We pray that the legislation that is deliberated on and passed will be fair and equitable for all citizens and resources and revenues equitably distributed. I pray that the members will not lean to their own understanding, but in all their ways acknowledge you and allow you to direct their paths, speech, and actions. I pray today that every need in this house will be met because you are Jehovah Jireh, the God that provides for us. Today, shine the light of your presence upon this General Assembly. As they wrestle with complexity, show them the way. Lord, you promise wisdom to all who simply ask of it. Remind them of your mission to bring deliverance to captives and liberty to the bruised. May our lawmakers focus on pleasing you and not on political consequences. Give them contrite and humble spirits. Teach them new and creative ways to cooperate with one another for a common good. May they honor your name in their thoughts, words, and actions. Provide them with compassion for the poor and helpless and use them to rescue the perishing. I pray today that a spirit of peace and oneness will permeate throughout this place and that even in the toughest of times that we will each remember that you are a God of love and compassion and not the author of confusion. It is in the matchless name of Jesus Christ I pray. Amen. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
That was strong. Good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors, leave them unlocked, and members may take photos with the chaplain in the South Ante room. What a great message. Thank you. The 3 L's, I get it. That was a good one. Members, we have a lot of guests in the gallery, and I bet they all want to hear what Chairman Tarvin is going to say. So let's give Chairman Tarvin your attention. Chair recognizes Chairman Tarvin, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And Mr. Speaker, I was reminded today that courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, but courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen.
That's very profound, Mr. Chairman. I think listening goes a long, long ways. Chairman Tarvin, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to dispense with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day?
Representative Estration of the 104th moves following be establishes the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Reports of standing committees. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 565 by Representative Smith of the 18th, Cooper of the 45th, Hilton of the 48th, Camp of the 135th. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 9 of Chapter 4, Title 49 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to temporary assistance for needy families.
Public and Community Health.
House Bill 566 by Representative Lewis Ward of the 115th, Beverly of the 143rd, Bentley of the 150th, Jackson of the 128th, Schofield of the 63rd. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 2 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Department of Agriculture.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 567 by Representative Chokus, the 151st, Collins, the 71st, Hitchens, the 161st, Yurda, the 152nd, Washburn, the 144th. Bill be titled Act to amend Part 1 of Article 2, Chapter 7 of Title 16 and Chapter 60 of Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions relative to criminal trespass and damage to property.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 568 by Representative Camp, the 135th, Ballinger, the 23rd, Mathiak, the 74th, Jaspers, the 11th, Corbett of the 174th. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 3, Title 51 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions regarding liability of owners and occupiers of land.
Judiciary.
House Bill 569 by Representative Stevens, the 164th, and Petrie, the 166th. Bill be titled Act to amend an act establishing the State Court of Bryan County.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 570 by Representative Cameron of the 1st, Camp of the 135th, Campbell of the 171st, Hagan of the 156th, and Huddleston of the 72nd. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 2 of Title 49 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions relevant to the Department of Human Services.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 571 by Representative Silcox of the 53rd, Cooper the 45th, Dempsey the 13th. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 8 of Chapter 6 and Title 49 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to Alzheimer's and related dementia state plan.
Human Relations and Aging.
House Bill 572 by Representative Reeves the 99th, DeLoach of the 167th, Gunner of the 8th, Smith of the 18th, Leverett of the 123rd, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to government, transparency, and campaign finance.
Judiciary.
House Bill 573 by Representative Gullett of the 19th. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 11 of Title 4 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to animal protection generally.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 574 by Representative Gullett of the 19th. Bill be titled Act to amend Code Section 824 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to fire sprinklers in single-family dwelling units.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 575 by Representative Gullett of the 19th, Hilton of the 48th, Wiedauer of the 121st, and Williams of the 168th. Bill be titled an Act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 43, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions relative to professions and businesses.
Regulated
House
Industries.
Bill 576 by Representative Gullet of the 19th and Scoggins of the 14th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 31 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding health.
Health.
House Bill 577 by Representative Davis, the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 63rd, Mitchell the 88th, Drenner the 85th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 45 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding public officers and employees.
Judiciary.
House Bill 578 by Representative Wilkerson of the 38th, Hilton of the 48th, Jones of the 25th, Carter of the 93rd, Smith of the 41st. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 16 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to student health in elementary and secondary education.
Education.
House Bill 579 by Representative Barrett of the 24th, Jones of the 25th, Hilton of the 48th, Dempsey the 13th, Jones of the 47th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to Georgia Special Needs Scholarship Act.
Education.
House Bill 580 by Representative Collins, the 71st, Smith of the 70th, Smith of the 18th, and Huddleston of the 72nd. Bill be titled an act to amend an act providing for the compensation expenses of the chairperson and members of the Board of Education of Carroll County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 581 by Representative Blackman of the 146th and Crow of the 118th. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 28541.1 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to economic analysis of certain tax benefits.
Budget and Fiscal Affairs Oversight.
House Bill 582 by Representative Cooper of the 45th, Silcox of the 53rd, Buckner of the 137th, Taylor of the 173rd, Seaball of the 34th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 of Title 31 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the regulation of hospitals and related institutions.
Human Relations and Aging.
House Bill 583 by Representative Hagan of the 156th, Gaines of the 120th, Campbell of the 135th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 26 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to standards, labeling, and adulteration of food.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 584 by Representative Roberts of the 52nd, Mitchell of the 88th, Iowa of the 50th, Panitch of the 51st, Evans of the 89th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 4, Chapter 11 of Title 16 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to dangerous instrumentalities and practices.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 585 by Representative Jones of the 25th, Cox of the 28th, Barrett of the 24th, Jaspers of the 11th, Clark of the 100th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 71 of Title 36 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to development impact fees.
Governmental Affairs.
House Resolution 301 by Representative Evans of the 89th, Cummings of the 39th, Westbrook of the 163rd, McLean of the 109th, Drenner of the 85th, and others. A resolution urging members of the United States Congress to enact federal legislation.
Special Rules.
House Resolution 302 by Representative Camp of the 135th, Burchett of the 176th, Hagan of the 156th, Lim of the 98th, Cameron of the 1st. A resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide for the appropriation of funds.
Judiciary.
House Resolution 303 by Representative Jones of the 25th, Cox of the 28th, Barrett of the 24th, Jaspers of the 11th, Clark of the 100th. A resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide the General Assembly made by general law authorized local boards.
Governmental Affairs.
House Resolution 321 by Representative Petrie of the 166th, Gunter of the 8th, Scoggins of the 14th, Reeves of the 99th, Mathis of the 149th, and others. A resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the State of Georgia so as to provide that the rights against self-incrimination be limited to criminal cases.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 50 by Senator Burns of the 23rd, Dixon of the 45th, Still of the 48th, Eccles of the 49th, Payne of the 54th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education.
Education.
Senate Bill 63 by Senator Robertson of the 29th, Gooch of the 51st, Brass of the 28th, Anna DeVarte of the 31st, Kennedy of the 18th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 6 of Title 17 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to bonds and recognizances.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
Senate Bill 110 by Senator Walker, the 20th, Gooch the 51st, Tillery the 19th, Anna DeVarte the 31st, Robertson the 29th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions for insurance.
Insurance.
Senate Bill 121 by Senator Anderson the 24th, Gannon the 47th, Gooch the 51st, Kennedy the 18th, Robertson the 29th, and others. Be entitled Act to amend Chapter 60, Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions applicable to counties and municipal corporations.
Natural Resources and Environment.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 531 by Representative Barrett of the 24th, Williamson of the 112th, Hilton of the 48th, Seabaugh of the 34th, a bill relating to local government. House Bill 532 by Representative Camp of the 135th, a bill to provide that future elections for the office of Chief Judge of Magistrate Court of Pike County shall be nonpartisan elections. House Bill 533 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, Stevens of the 164th, Willis of the 55th, and Thomas of the 65th, a bill relating to income taxes. House Bill 534 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, Bruce of the 61st, Beverly of the 143rd, and Williams of the 168th, a bill relating to landlord and tenant. House Bill 535 by Representative Thomas of the 65th, a bill relating to education. House Bill 536 by Representative Thomas of the 65th, a bill relating to income taxes. House Bill 537 by Representative Evans of the 89th, Ballard of the 147th, Cooper of the 45th, Paris of the 142nd, Maynard of the 56th, and others, a bill relating to education. House Bill 538 by Representative Ballard of the 147th, Wade of the 9th, Irwin of the 32nd, Jones of the 47th, Gilliard of the 162nd, and others, a bill relating to elementary and secondary education. House Bill 539 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd, a bill to provide that the judge of the probate court of Wilkes County shall also serve as the chief magistrate judge of the magistrate court of Wilkes County. House Bill 540 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd, a bill to create the Board of Elections and Registration for Wilkes County. House Bill 541 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th, Hitchens of the 161st, Crow of the 118th, Staines of the 180th, and Scoggins of the 14th, a bill relating to general provisions relative to uniform rules of the road. House Bill 542 by Representative Mathiak of the 74th, Knight of the 134th, and Daniel of the 117th, a bill to repeal an act to incorporate the city of Sunnyside. House Bill 543 by Representative Reeves of the 99th, Smith of the 18th, Silcox of the 53rd, Leverett of the 123rd, and Gunter of the 8th, a bill relating to demand of jury panels from which juries to select jury in civil actions in state courts and superior courts. House Bill 544 by Representative Schofield of the 63rd, Scott of the 76th, Hutchinson of the 106th, and Davis of the 87th, a bill relating to detention, decision, and findings. House Bill 545 by Representative Cannon of the 172nd, Corbett of the 174th, Dickey of the 145th, Rhodes of the 124th, Houston of the 170th, and others, a bill relating to agriculture commodity commissions. House Bill 546 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th, Stevens of the 164th, Parrish of the 158th, a bill relating to definitions relative to the Georgia Pharmacy Practice Act. House Bill 547 by Representative Hatchett of the 155th, a bill to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of East Dublin. House Bill 548 by Representative Schofield of the 63rd, Beverly of the 143rd, Gilliard of the 162nd, Scott of the 76th, Cannon of the 58th, a bill to amend the Georgia Entertainment Industry Investment Act. House Bill 549 by Representative Smith of the 18th, Carpenter of the 4th, Stevens of the 164th, Bonner of the 73rd, Seabaugh of the 34th, a bill to amend the Georgia Statewide Music Office Act. House Bill 550 by Representative Buckner of the 137th, a bill relating to sales and use taxes. House Bill 551 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Drenner of the 85th, Schofield of the 63rd, Taylor of the 92nd, Barnes of the 86th, and others, a bill relating to conditional discharge for possession of controlled substance as first offense, certain nonviolent property crimes, dismissal of charges, restitution to victims. House Bill 552 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Davis of the 87th, Schofield of the 63rd, a bill relating to general provisions regarding professions and business. House Bill 553 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Davis of the 87th, Hutchinson of the 106th, Schofield of the 63rd, a bill relating to dangerous instrumentalities and practices. House Bill 554 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Davis of the 87th, Schofield of the 63rd, and Hutchinson of the 106th, a bill relating to dangerous instrumentalities and practices. House Bill 555 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Davis of the 87th, Schofield of the 63rd, and Hutchinson of the 106th, a bill relating to offenses against public order and safety. House Bill 556 by Representative Smith of the 18th, Daniel of the 117th, Hilton of the 48th, Green of the 154th, Miller of the 62nd, and others, a bill relating to labor and industrial relations. House Bill 557 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Jones of the 47th, Parrish of the 158th, Powell of the 33rd, Schofield of the 63rd, and others, a bill relating to physicians, assistants, and others. House Bill 558 by Representative Jones of the 25th, Dubnick of the 29th, Hatchett of the 155th, Perkel of the 169th, Corbett of the 174th. A bill relating to care and protection of indigent and elderly patients. House Bill 559 by Representative Draper of the 90th, Olalier of the 59th, Gullett of the 19th, Bachman of the 146th, Carpenter of the 4th, and others. A bill relating to primaries and elections. House Bill 560 by Representative Mathiak of the 74th, Powell of the 33rd, Hagan of the 156th, Jaspers of the 11th, Gunter of the 8th. A bill relating to offenses against public order and safety. House Bill 561 by Representative Carter of the 93rd, Mitchell of the 88th, Kendrick of the 95th, and Oliver of the 82nd. A bill relating to general provisions regarding preparation for and conduct of primaries and elections. House Bill 562 by Representative Jones of the 25th, Barrett of the 24th, Hilton of the 48th, Parkle of the 169th, and Cox of the 28th. A bill relating to education accountability. House Bill 563 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd, Gunter of the 8th, Reeves of the 99th, Martinez of the 111th, Holcomb of the 81st, and others. A bill to amend the Fair Employment Practice Act of 1978. House Bill 564 by Representative Williams of the 37th, Oliver of the 82nd, Buckner of the 137th. A bill relating to general provisions relative to solid waste management. House Resolution 278 by Representative Parsons of the 44th, a resolution creating the House Study Committee on Civics Education in Georgia. House Resolution 279 by Representative Clays of the 67th, Barnes of the 86th, Olalier of the 59th, Clark of the 108th, Douglas of the 78th, and others. A bill resolution creating the Joint Head and Heart Student Health Study Committee. House Resolution 281 by Representative Olalier of the 59th, Evans of the 57th, Blaze of the 67th, Green of the 154th, Irwin of the 32nd, and others. A bill creating the House Study Committee on Lottery Revenues, Reserves, and Educational Programs. Senate Bill 90 by Senator Dixon of the 45th, Gooch of the 51st, Alberts of the 56th, Still of the 48th, Kennedy of the 18th. A bill relating to selling and other trade practices. Senate Bill 108 by Senator Burns of the 23rd and Anderson of the 24th. A bill to amend an act providing a 7-member Board of Education in McDuffie County. Senate Bill 120 by Senator Eccles of the 49th, Hatchett of the 50th, Still of the 48th, Dolezal of the 27th, Beach of the 21st, and others. A bill relating to safe operation of motor carriers, commercial motor vehicles, and drivers, and safe transportation of hazardous materials. Senate Bill 178 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th and Lucas of the 26th. A bill to amend the Macon Water Authority Act. 3 second readers.
Reports of standing committees. Mr. Clerk will read.
Representative Chuck Martin of the 49th District, Chairman of the Committee on Higher Education, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Higher Education set under consideration the following bills of the House. It's instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 130 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 185 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 249 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 163 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 380 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Chuck Martin of the 49th District, Chairman. Representative Gunner of the 8th District, Chairman of the Committee on Judiciary, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary has had under its consideration the following bills of the House. It's instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 298 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 355 do pass. House Bill 375 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Gunner of the 8th District, Chairman. Representative Mandy Ballinger of the 23rd District, Chairman of the Committee on Juvenile Justice, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Juvenile Justice has had under its consideration the following bills of the House. It's instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 144 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 460 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 462 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 499 do pass. House Bill 508 do pass. House Bill 509 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Mandy Ballinger of the 23rd District, Chairman. Representative John Corbett of the 174th District, Chairman of the Committee on Motor Vehicles, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Motor Vehicles had under its consideration the following bills of the House. It's instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation. House Bill 348 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative John Corbett of the 174th District, Chairman. Representative Jay Collins of the 71st District, Chairman of the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security has under its consideration the following bills of the House. Instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 424 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 500 do pass. House Bill 505 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jay Collins of the 71st District, Chairman. Representative Mike Chokas of the 151st District, Chairman of the Committee on Small Business Development, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Small Business Development has had under its consideration the following bills of the House. Has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation. House Bill 498 do pass. House Bill 507 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Mike Chokas of the 151st District, Chairman. Representative Rick Jaspers of the 11th District, Chairman of the Committee on Transportation, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Transportation has had under its consideration the following bill of the House. Has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation. House Bill 516 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Rick Jaspers of the 11th District, Chairman. Representative Shaw Blackman of the 146th District, Chairman on Committee on Ways and Means, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Ways and Means has had under its consideration the following bills and resolutions of the House. Instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 311 do pass. House Bill 308 do pass. House Resolution 96 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Shaw Blackman of the 146th District, Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
Members, we're almost ready to move on to morning orders, almost. If you will please take your seats or take your conversations to the anteroom. That one's empty to the south anteroom, I can tell you. I can see it. Well, yes, that is correct. We have an action we need to take that you all are interested in. I can assure you you're all interested in. If you please take your seats. Chairman Hatchett is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House disagree with the Senate substitute to House Bill 18, insist on its position, and assign a conference committee.
The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 18 by Representative Burns, 159, Jones, the 47th, abstention of the 104th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend an act making providing appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and ending June 30th, 2023, known as the General Appropriations Act.
Chairman Hatchett is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
This will allow us just to get to work and try to settle our differences with the Senate on the amended budget.
On the gentleman's motion that the House disagree to the Senate substitute, is there objection? Chair hears none, and the House has disagreed to the Senate substitute to HB 18. For what purpose does Representative Chairman Hatchett rise?
Make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that the House immediately transmit our action on Senate Amendment to House Bill 18 to the Senate.
Representative Hatchett moves that HB 18 immediately transmit to the Senate. So we will have to take a recorded vote on this motion. Okay. Is there an objection to the gentleman's motion? Hearing none, it is so ordered. We'll move on to morning orders. Chairman Dempsey, has she made her way to the chamber? There she is. Chairman Dempsey is recognized to introduce our physician of the day.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my honor to introduce y'all today. We have a great doctor here at the Capitol. He's my friend and the friend of many of us from Floyd County, Dr. Brad Bushnell. He was raised in a sweet place, Athens, Georgia, graduating as the valedictorian of Clark Central High School and majoring in religious studies at Vanderbilt University. Graduated with the highest of honors and is fluent in Spanish, having studied at the University of Madrid in Spain while in college. He received his medical degree at the Medical College of Georgia, where he was president of Alpha Omega Alpha, a medical honor society, completing an internship in general surgery and a residency in orthopedic surgery. He served at the University of North Carolina Hospitals in Chapel Hill, where he began his huge love of sports medicine, actually. A long history there, caring for the athletes there, the Tar Heels. He went on to do many, many other places where he has worked with the programs from the Colorado Rockies, the Denver Broncos, also serving as team physician for the Berry College Vikings, the Rome Braves, the Tryon High School Bulldogs, and the SWAT team, as well as our Reserve Sheriff's Deputy program in Rome and Floyd County. He is a great man who is invested well in Rome, gives much of his heart, shares his generous gifts of time and talent with many. Today, if anything is hurting you the least little bit in any of your joints, if your knees or your ankles or your shoulders, it's a great day to walk downstairs and introduce yourself to Dr. Bushnell, who is just now coming on the floor. So if y'all would please give him a great welcome.
I'm hurting all over already, but come on.
So one more thing. I'll give you one more great thing that I was trying to move through. Not only is he such a caring physician for athletes, he himself is also a great athlete. He's an accomplished triathlete, having completed 52 triathlons, including 2 full Ironman and 14 half-iron distance races. Avid in his athletic ability, generous in his gifts, and in his love of our hometown, Rome and Floyd County.
Dr. Bushnell, welcome. Thank you for your service. Would you like to say a word?
It was funny. We were just coming across from the Senate, and I saw Katie talking. I thought, man, that sounds pretty cool. I wonder who she's talking about. I guess it was me. But I just want to thank everyone here. I'll tell you the same thing I said over in the Senate chamber. I've been Doctor of the Day many times, and ironically, I was Doctor of the Day here exactly 3 years ago. My son was a Senate page, and he had a trip coming up that summer. It was an exchange program to Japan. And we wondered if the regional virus in Asia might delay his trip a little bit. Little did we know that 3 years later, that regional virus would become the coronavirus pandemic and all that came with that. But the chaplain of the day in the Senate quoted a hymn that said, I need you and you need me, and we need each other to survive. And so I want to thank the leadership in this chamber and in this building. Some of you are new, but many of you have been present since that day 3 years ago. And not only have we survived as a state and as a medical community, but we have thrived. Our state has been held up across the nation as the envy of many that didn't make the right decisions during that time. And a lot of hard decisions had to be made, and a lot of them had to be made in this room. So as a lifelong Georgian, and on behalf of the medical community, I thank every one of you for the work that you do now and the work that you've done over the past 3 years to put our state into the great place that it's in today. It's awesome to see the Capitol back to its old self with pages running around and everybody mingling out in the Great Hall. But that would not be the case if not for the decisions made here and the work that you all do. So thank you for that, and good luck today. I know you have a busy day. It's an honor to be your doctor. I'll be downstairs if you need me. Thank you.
Dr. Bushnell, we're having a huge kickball game with the Senate pretty quickly, so we're gonna probably have to get you back the day after. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your service to Rome and to our state. Members, another announcement that you need to be aware of. Representative Sharon Henderson's daughter, Angel, is having surgery this morning as well. So let's keep Angel in our prayers as she goes through that surgery. Now, we have several former members, and for sakes of efficiency, I'm going to recognize them all together. I think they're all on the back row back there on the wall. Representative Brenda Lopez, Representative Deborah Gonzalez, and I saw her earlier this day, Representative D. Dawkins Hagler. Welcome, ladies. We appreciate y'all's service. Let's give them some applause. Thank you for your service. It's good to see y'all as well. Now, we have several morning orders. We're going to enforce a 1-minute time limit this morning. So we'll begin with Representative Jones, Davis, Bernal, Jackson, and Cummings for a great morning order. Ladies. If y'all will join everyone in your red.
Good morning, and welcome to Delta Day at the Capitol. I'm Representative Viola Davis, a member of Decatur alum, and I stand here with my sorors, Representative Rhonda Bonneau with East Point College Park alum, Sheila Jones with Atlanta alum, Edna Jackson with Savannah alum, and Terry Cummins with Marietta Roswell alum. We introduced House Resolution 59, a special resolution which recognizes today, February the 27th, 2023, as Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Day at the Capitol, better known as Delta Day. This resolution commemorates 110 years of service in the 22 young women who founded the Sisterhood of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated on January 13th, 1913, on the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C. I ask all my dynamic sisters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated to please stand, and let's celebrate Delta Day. And here's our resolution.
Welcome, ladies, and what a great Delta Day. Good to have y'all. Good to have all of you here. Representative Nulowitz is recognized for a morning order.
Thank you so much, everyone. I am here with Representative Terry Cummings and Representative Doug Stoner, and together this triumvirate is the Smyrna delegation. And we are here today to welcome and introduce y'all to the Smyrna Youth Council, which has been visiting us at the Capitol this morning. They have spent the past several months learning about all different levels of local, county, and now state government, and we're thrilled to be here today. They are in the gallery. If y'all could identify yourselves, and we will welcome you. And they might, or unless they didn't make it into the gallery, because it's very crowded today. And if they're out in the hallways, reveal yourselves. We're so glad you're here today. Smyrna Youth Council, thank you.
Thank you, Representative and friends. Representative Martinez is recognized for a morning order. And friends are going to be with him.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Buenos dias, mi familia. Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize today's Latino Day here at the Capitol. And I want to recognize, first of all, my beautiful wife sitting right next to Mrs. Williamson in the back, so make sure you greet her. Mr. Speaker, I also want to recognize the Latinos that are in the crowd. Wave. And I also want to recognize that today is Dominican Republic Independence Day. I have made up a House resolutions to celebrate this special occasion. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. You're the will.
It's a great day. Thank you, Representative. Representative Hagan is recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The gallery is so full, I don't think this group was able to make it in, but I do want to recognize several people that are here from the City of Lyons today. They're interested in a little bill that is on the rules calendar later. Mayor of Lyons, Willis Neesmith, the Lyons City Manager, Jason Hall, Lyons Main Street Director, Daphne Walker, Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby Chairman, Jonathan Gordy, and his wife, Ashley, the 2021 local champion and top 18 in the world, Noah Gordy's here, the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby Pageant Director, Leslie Harrell, and two Derby pageant queens are here, Emma Waters and Malaya Pittman. And also I'd like to recognize John and Anna Long, who did make it to the gallery. They are parents of one of today's pages. Thank you for coming to the House today, and we welcome all of you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are those soapboxes EVs now, or are they just regular soapboxes? Gravity fed, that's what I thought. Traditional. Representative Alexander and the Douglas County delegation is recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have a group of people here from Douglas County with the Chamber of Commerce. We have our commissioner, our sheriff, our mayor. So if you can stand up and be recognized, we appreciate you being here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Billy Mitchell, Representative Al Williams for a morning order and a very special recognition.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Jack and Jill of America is a leadership organization formed during the Great Depression, formed by African American mothers to improve the quality of life of children. 262 chapters representing more than 50,000 family members nationwide. Please help me recognize members of the Southeastern chapter, which includes Georgia. They're in the gallery. Please stand, Jack and Jill members in the gallery. Help me recognize them. There are hundreds of them here, Mr. Speaker, on the Capitol who will be advocating for good public policy. Thank you. And
the gentleman's going to yield, and Representative Williams has a special recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is a very special person, two very special people, but one particularly here with Jack and Jill, one of only 3 people in the world that call me Papa, and that's my grandbaby, Graylin Williams. Will you stand? And my daughter-in-law, Jennifer Williams. My baby. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
all right, that was good. Thank you.
Keep your granddaddy straight. Good luck. We have 2 other former members, Representative Derek Jackson and Camilla Hobson Jackson. Are they? There they are. Good to see y'all. Come here, I'm sorry. It's good to see you especially. Representative Bruce is recognized for a morning order, and he has some friends with him.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The mission of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women is to advocate for benefits and recognition for women, black women, and girls. And we are blessed to have in the gallery with us the Coalition of 100 Black Women. Would you please rise and be recognized? And thank you very, very much for being here, for all that you do for our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will.
Thank you, Representative Bruce. Representative Cummins is recognized for a morning order.
Greetings to my colleagues, guests, and esteemed members of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. It is my honor and pleasure to share on this 27th day of African American History Month a true trailblazer and leader, Soror Dorothy Height. Soror Dorothy Height was born on March 24th, 1912. She attended New York University and received her master's degree at Columbia University School of Social Work. There she pledged the Rho chapter of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Height became a counselor for the YWCA in New York and eventually met Mary McLeod Bethune and Eleanor Roosevelt at a meeting of the National Council of Negro Women. This meeting would change her life forever and further push her into a service of civil rights and advocacy. Dorothy Height continued her work with the YWCA, leading to the National Board to move from token integration to full desegregation. Height served as the national president of Delta Sigma Theta from 1947 to 1956. She became president of the National Council of Negro Women in 1958 and served in that capacity for 40 years. During the Civil Rights Movement, she organized Wednesdays in Mississippi, which brought together white and black women from the North and South to work against segregation. She developed many international programs with the NCNW in Asia, Africa, Europe, and South America. Height wrote a weekly column for the New York Amsterdam News and published the infamous report, the Tuskegee Syphilis Study, which became an international ethical touchstone. She was the driving force behind erecting the first statue to an African American person on federal land in D.C. in honor of Mary McLeod Bethune. The statue is significant for representing the contributions of minorities and women in the U.S. In 1990, Height became a woman that helped found the African American Women for Reproductive Freedom. She was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Bill Clinton in 1994, and she is the only African American woman to have a federal facility named after her and a stamp. Thank you.
That completes our morning orders. We're ready to move on to the rules calendar, members. Ready to move on to the rules calendar. The clerk will read the caption to HB 122.
House Bill 122 by Representative Hawkins, the 27th, and others to be entitled Act to amend Article 11 of Chapter 3 of Title 20 and Chapter 9 of Title 30 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to higher education savings plan in Georgia achieving a better life experience, respectively, so as to provide for the governance of the Georgia ABLE program by Board of Directors of the Georgia Higher Education Savings Plan. This bill having referred to the Committee on Higher Education, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Hawkins is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 122. Years ago, the Georgia General Assembly passed the ABLE Act, a better living experience for the disabled. This allowed disabled Georgians to save in excess of $2,000 without losing their disability benefits, allowing them to save for the future and live independently. Last year, the House unanimously passed this legislation you have on your desk, but unfortunately, an amendment by the Senate killed the bill. For those new to the chamber, let me briefly describe this legislation. The primary goal of this legislation is to create operational efficiencies for the state's 529 ABLE savings program by bringing the two programs under the leadership of one board, which will improve outreach and support for the families of the disabled. HB 122 removes the current $235,000 cap allowing the board the flexibility to set the limits in the future. This legislation will not change how participants in either the Georgia Able Plan or the Path to College program use or manage their accounts, nor does it commingle the funds between the two plans. This is a good bill that will allow disabled Georgians to live independently rather than becoming a ward of the state. Judy Fitzgerald last year noted that 70% of the people served by BHDD would qualify for the ABLE program. I would ask for your favorable consideration. If there are no questions, Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well.
The gentleman has no questions. The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 167, the nays are 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The clerk will read the caption to HB 254. Mr. Clerk?
House Bill 254 by Representative Jenkins, the 136 and others to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 913-142 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the requirements of an official legal organ so as to provide an alternative procedure for the designation of the official legal organ. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Chair recognizes Representative Jenkins to present the bill.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I rise to present House Bill 254. This bill seeks to address some recognized issues with our legal organs. It's a three-part bill. The first part gives communities more flexibility in the event they lose their legal organ. It allows them to select an interim in the event they don't have a qualifying paper to serve the community. The second section of this bill changes the add rates to the legal organs. This hasn't been done in almost 30 years, so it was time for these to be adjusted for inflation. The third section of this bill addresses if the legal organ does not publish a notice as it is supposed to. In this section, it basically allows for using other methods, online methods, to satisfy the notification requirements, so whatever legal process it is can move forward. Pending your question, request your favorable consideration.
The gentleman yield for a question. Gentleman yield for a question.
Yes, I yield.
Representative Williams, to your left, from House District 168, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
To my friend, I will.
I certainly, is it not true that I certainly like the bill? I know what it intends to do, but I need some clarification. We're losing in rural Georgia a lot of former legal organs, and a lot of counties find themselves in the position that you're trying to correct. Is that not true?
That's correct, sir.
What is the long range as we lose more and more newspapers? The social media part that you mentioned, are they going to be able to step in and fill the gap? Because not only rural, but newspapers are becoming a thing of the past as a rule. What's the long-term help for counties that multiple counties that won't have legal organs?
So the long-term, the county officials that select find one that best serves their community. But this bill does not create any mechanism to not have a legal organ. That's a separate issue.
Gentlemen, further yield.
I further yield.
The lady from the 42nd, Representative Nulowitz, to your left, extreme left, has a conversation. Hey, question, excuse me.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, I yield.
Thank you. Is it not true that there is actually data that supports the argument that the more robust your local paper is, the lower your taxes tend to be as an individual?
I'm sure you know what you speak of.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I do.
Is it not true that while we should keep supporting then these local newspapers, these legal organs, it is also important that the citizens be able to get this information in a way that is as accessible as possible, and that can include the internet?
That certainly sounds like a reasonable statement.
Thank you.
Gentleman has a couple of more questions. One more, as a matter of fact, if you'll take one more.
I'll take one more.
The lady from the 92nd, Representative Taylor, to your left out front, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Thank you. I think Representative Nolan, let's just answer the question for, but just for clarity, like during COVID, a lot of the newspapers were doing digital print, and I don't see the word digital in here except for the county website. Does this bill also allow for the digital newsletters that are going out from these newspapers as well?
So the requirement to publish it in a newspaper is unchanged. It has to, the notices have to be published in a newspaper. There is a provision in the third section of the bill, if that ad fails to run as it was intended to allow electronic means to serve as the notice, so that the process that was supporting continues, and it is not interrupted. It doesn't have to start over.
But it has to be, I'm sorry, did the gentleman further yield?
I do.
So for clarity, just to make sure I'm straight, it does have to be published and printed?
Yes, yes, it has to be published, and if you live in an area with a robust legal organ, that provision probably won't be really used in your area. But
thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
I see no further questions. The gentleman has yielded the well. Thank you for the presentation. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 166. The nays are 1. The bill having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The clerk will read the caption to HB 268.
House Bill 268 by Representative Corbett of the 174th and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 6A, Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, so as to provide for the establishment of a grant program to support local law enforcement agencies and multi-jurisdiction task forces relative to motor vehicle-related crime prevention initiatives. This bill having referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
The chair recognizes Chairman Corbett to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I'll bring before you House Bill 268, LC 393768S. Local law enforcement agencies across the state are grappling with motor vehicle crimes. These crimes range from auto theft, parts theft, especially catalytic converter thefts here lately have been on the rise, insurance fraud and more. The common handicap that these law enforcement agencies have is lack of bandwidth, lack of equipment, lack of personnel, lack of technology, access to data, boundary and jurisdictional restrictions. Other states across the nation have created auto theft prevention, either authorities or commissions, to address these issues. We have pulled from these other states components that have proven to be effective in fight against motor vehicle crimes and have included them in 268. So what this bill does, we are establishing a Georgia Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Advisory Board. The board will be located at the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. The council will establish a grant program, and it's all dependent on funding, to help assist local law enforcement agencies in multi-jurisdictional task force relative to motor vehicle-related crime prevention initiatives. The purpose of the advisory board will be to accept applications from local law enforcement and then to make recommendations to the council as to which ones to fund. The funding for these grants will be federal grants granted by Congress, as well as gifts and donations from individuals, private organizations, or foundations. Acceptance of these grants does not obligate the state to appropriate any funds. So this will be funded totally by federal grants or private donations. Other states have done this. Louisiana's got a really good program that has proven to work. That's what we've modeled this after. And Mr. Speaker, I will take any questions at this time. And we passed this same bill last year.
Gentleman, yield for a question.
Yes, sir.
Representative Holly, to your left, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Just curious, I see on line 61 the discussion of like the prevention of the criminal behavior. I know typically looking at some of the criminal justice bills that this chamber has passed, there's been an overall notion in crime. And in what way would you suggest that this allow for the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council to provide prevention strategies that are not themselves an extension of criminal penalties?
Well, this will be local law enforcement agencies applying for these grants. That's one thing they can include in that application, is that we're going to use it for this particular purpose. That's what a local law enforcement do. It's not the Criminal Justice Council. They're just actually it's housed the administrator of these grants. And they will provide that to local law enforcement to help first-time offenders, I think is what it's stated in here, to be able to help them prevent from reoccurring. I think it's proven if you can get training and hope to help prevent them from being a recidive occurrence in the future.
Is this a gentleman further you?
I do.
And what types of activities, I thank you for clearing that for me, that it's not the Justice Council, it's going to be local, for local law enforcement. what is it beyond? Because the general notion in this chamber is that if you put more time on the person and give longer sentences, that's somehow a reduction of crime. If this bill seeks to prevent crimes, I'm sure you used when you drafted this bill, what local measures are actually of crime from happening?
Well, that would be, it could be anything from training to the locals being taught, where to park their vehicles, where don't leave stuff laying in your seats, where people can see it to break the windows out. It's just a gamut of things, but that's going to be totally up to the local law enforcement as to what they want to do to implement to help prevent these first-time offenders.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Gentleman has one more question if you yield.
I'll yield.
Representative Collins to your straight ahead has a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do, to my friend.
To my friend, thank you for bringing this piece of legislation. And one of the things I wanted to ask, is it not true that with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and developing a program, we're talking about dealing with some stolen vehicles and stolen auto parts, that educating these people that buy these parts and trade these parts on the black market, that education within itself could be seen as prevention and preventing these crimes from happening. Is that not true?
That is exactly true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman has no further questions.
Well, Mr. Speaker, members of the House, most everybody here is old enough to remember McGriff the crime dog. Y'all vote for this and help me take a bite out of crime.
You were good until then. Wow. Okay. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 162, the nays are 7. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The clerk will read the caption to HB 444.
House Bill 444 by Representative Reeves, the 99th, and others to be entitled Act to amend Article 9 of Chapter 14 and Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to Liz pendants so as to revise when an action may operate as a Liz pendants. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Representative Reeves is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House members, I present to you House Bill 444. If this looks familiar from last year, it's because it is from last year. This came back over from the Senate with a minor change and almost made it, but ran out of time. Chairman Gunter worked really hard on this bill last year. A lis pendens, that's a Latin phrase that means a lawsuit is pending. It's a real estate filing when a lawsuit pertains to a parcel of real estate. It's a common law doctrine, and this bill gives some statutory criteria, ground rules, and due process for lis pendens to make sure that real estate title is not clouded unnecessarily by that real estate filing when there's litigation. Respectfully request your approval of House Bill 444 And I yield for questions, Mr. Speaker.
You have no questions. Good job.
Thank you.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 171, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption? Excuse me. Will you read the caption to HB 147, Mr. Clerk?
House Bill 147 by Representative Wade of the 9th and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2, Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to elementary and secondary education so as to provide for a school safety and anti-gang endorsement for eligible certified professional personnel issued by the Professional Standards Commission. This bill having referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Wade to present the bill.
Thank you, Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. I rise to present to you House Bill 147. This is Governor Kemp's Safe Schools Act, and I was honored to carry it through the process, and this does come to you as a unanimous recommended bill. This bill does four things. First, it establishes a voluntary school safety and anti-gang endorsement for current teachers or future teachers. It encourages colleges and universities within their teacher preparation programs to include training and best practices for promoting and preserving safe schools and identifying and deterring youth gangs. It also ensures that school safety plans that are currently submitted to their local law enforcement agencies be additionally shared with GEMA and Homeland Security. And last but not least, this will require an annual intruder alert drill before October 1st, and there is a provision that will allow for students and faculty to have an opt-out. With that, I hope and ask for your favorable consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So the gentleman is yielded for a question. The lady from the 50th, Representative Al has a question.
Thank you. Does the senator yield? Sorry. Does the representative yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I will forgive that demotion, and I do yield to my
Sorry
friend.
to insult you, sir. First of all, is it not true that I enjoy our friendship and enjoy working with you?
I believe that to be true.
All right, now I have two real questions.
Okay.
All right. So is it not true that there is a nationwide retrospective study that surveyed K through 12 students across 33 states that found that anxiety, stress, and depression among students increased 39 to 42% after active shooter drills, in conjunction with the fact that there is actually scant evidence that such drills save lives?
So I'm sure the gentlelady is quoting facts that she believes to be true. Two things. One, our bill also acknowledges that there are certain situations in which some students or some faculty might need to opt out for special needs situations or life experiences. I can tell you in my district we had a former faculty member that had lived and survived a tornado, and we allowed for that person not to participate within a tornado drill in our local community. But I'd also say that incident response is beyond that of active shooters. There are lots of potential risks that school systems need to have an opportunity to prepare for, and this incident response drill will encompass many of those things, especially outside of specifically the concern that you referenced. Thank you for your question.
Certainly. Just one other question. I just wanted to point out that.
Gentleman yield.
Does the gentleman yield for one more question? Okay. So I do appreciate, and we've talked about this personally on the floor, your focus on prevention when it comes to keeping our children safe from violence in schools. This is a yes or no question. Do you feel that gun safety legislation serves any role in creating a culture of violence prevention and protecting our children?
I'm going to answer the question the way I answered it when you asked me in person. I believe that we need to seek things that prevent violence, period, in our schools, especially to protect our students and our faculties. Thank you.
So is that a yes?
Violence encompasses many things beyond that which the lady has referenced. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If there are no further questions.
Have a couple more if the gentleman will yield.
I'll yield for 2 more.
2 more. Okay, and then we have some speakers on the bill. To your left, Representative Kennard is recognized for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I yield to my friend.
When I visit, is it not true that when I visit my high schools, the principals complain about the number of fire drills they're having to conduct, which is like once a month? Would this drill replace some of those, or are they adding to the volume of drills that they have to perform?
I appreciate the question. So I am certain that sometimes drills and things that we are required to do can become frustrating, but I can assure you that if you are a school system that has faced a fire, you are very thankful that you went through those fire drills. And the determination of if the gentleman wants to address how many fire drills there are in each year, that's a separate issue, and I'm happy to discuss that for future legislation. This just requires one required incident response drill each year. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a couple of questions. We're going to have some further speakers, so I'm going to ask you to take one more question. That's from your left, far left. Representative Chairman Saines has a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I yield to my friend, yes.
Is it not true that this House has led an investment in public safety for our school system, and this further allows those systems to test out the mechanisms that they've utilized for that investment?
The gentleman knows with what he speaks. We as a House have recommended $60,000 per school. This will be a coupling piece of legislation that will allow school systems to continue to improve and prevent intruders and others from accessing their buildings. Thank you for that point. And at this time, I appreciate your consideration, and I yield the well. Thank you.
The gentleman has yielded the well. We have a couple of speakers signed up. We'll start with Representative Jasmine Clark, as recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise because I want to be a voice for those who can't be here today. I wonder how many of you have ever actually asked the children who are subjected to these active shooter or intruder drills in our schools if they actually feel safer. Well, I did. I am the mother of an 8th grader, and she has been doing these drills since she was in elementary school. Drill is pretty standard. You're supposed to run, hide, and if the person gets in, you're supposed to fight. Students are told to run into a closet or huddle in an area of the classroom where they can't be seen while the teacher locks the door, and then there's to be absolutely quiet so that the intruder doesn't know that they're there. The last time my daughter's school had a soft lockdown, not a drill, an actual lockdown, she spoke with me about it. She said, "Mom, these drills do not work. Because if the shooter is another student, they aren't stupid. They know the school is not empty. They know we're in there. And also, they've done these drills. They know the protocol. They know where we are, and they are still going to kill us." The truth is, my daughter is speaking based on what she's seen in her own life. She's been doing these active shooter drills since she was in elementary school. And she has also watched in horror as students in other places have been murdered in a place that is supposed to be safe. Multiple times. When are we as a body going to stop pretending that we care and actually do something meaningful that keeps guns out of our schools in the first place? We have several bills that take common sense approaches to keeping guns out of our schools. Pediatrics, safe storage, keep the guns out of the hands of kids, no hearing. Universal background checks, keep the guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them, no hearing. Requiring reevaluation before allowing individuals who've been involuntarily committed to mental institutions, no hearing. This equates to us having fire drills, which was just mentioned, while taking absolutely no precaution to stop the fires from happening or spreading in the first place. We regulate fire extinguishers in this state more than we regulate firearms in this state. Why? This bill will very likely pass today, and everyone who votes yes are going to go pat themselves on the back as if they actually did something. Well, I'm here to tell you right here in this well, you did nothing but made yourself feel better, but you did nothing to make our students feel safer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. Ladies and gentlemen, remember our House rules. We have very good presentations, but no applause, any other inappropriate activity. Representative Ann Allen Westbrook is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. I rise to speak in opposition to House Bill 147, the Safe Schools Act. I'm just going to note at the outset, this bill has a really nice name. We all want safe schools, right? Unfortunately, there is no evidence to indicate that this bill is going to make our schools safer, much less safe. In fact, there's evidence it may significantly negatively impact our students' mental health. And finally, it's just one more burden that this body is putting on teachers and students in Georgia's public schools. This bill mandates that public schools across Georgia conduct intruder alert drills. It mandates they conduct those drills under the guidance of Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency, and it mandates that they report completion of the drills back to the agency by October 1 of each year. The question we need to be asking, though, is, does it work? That's already been raised today, but it can't be raised enough. Does it work? If it's not good policy, we shouldn't keep doing it just because that's how we're doing it now. School shootings are relatively rare, accounting for less than 1% of the more than 43,000 annual U.S. gun deaths. But they instill a deep sense of fear in communities, and they cause policymakers like us to want to do something, anything, fast. So in response to these rare but terrifying events, active shooter drills have been implemented in the majority of America's K-12 schools, including Georgia. This is despite a complete absence of evidence that these drills are effective at limiting deaths or injuries in a school shooting. They are reactive. They are not proactive. There's no evidence that they make our schools safe, as the name of this bill claims. There is evidence, however, that intruder alert drills can have a significant negative impact on students' mental health. Our friends up the road at Georgia Tech conducted their own study of the immediate and long-term impacts of active shooter drills on the health and well-being of students, teachers, and parents. The results revealed a 42% increase in anxiety and a 39% increase in depression, and this trend was sustained for the 90 days following the drills and spanned diverse school districts and drill tactics. High school and middle school communities had the highest increases, and elementary schools also showed increases in both anxiety, depression, and stress as well. So what we have here is a policy with no real demonstrable benefit at all that carries real costs for our kids. Also, this bill burdens teachers. Our schools need our support in dealing with huge challenges like making gains on reading level proficiency and catching up COVID-19 related learning loss. Our public schools are the only schools in Georgia that are required to educate every Georgia child, including those with learning differences and those living in poverty. We do not need to give teachers more to do and more reasons to leave the profession in this state. They're already doing drills of some kind in our schools, but those drills are right now tailored to the needs of their schools, which they know best. This requires an additional layer of bureaucratic oversight and reporting that our schools frankly don't need. If we want to truly increase school safety, there are some proactive options we could consider. The U.S. Secret Service has done an analysis of targeted school violence, and it revealed that half of school shootings are carried out by current or past students, and 3/4 of those used a firearm that they accessed from their home or the home of a friend or relative. This was the case in January in Virginia when a 6-year-old accessed a firearm at home, took it to school, and shot his first-grade teacher. 2 bills filed this session in this body would address safe storage of firearms around minors. That's HB 161, Pediatric Safe Storage Act, that requires firearms to be stored safely around minors, and HB 135, which provides that the failure to secure a firearm that is accessed by a minor and used for a threat of violence or in the commission of a crime would be a misdemeanor, just a misdemeanor. So there are actions this body could take to create policy that actually has a good chance of making schools safer. This bill is not that. So ask yourself if this is really what the educators in your district want from you as leaders in this state. I know what mine want. Mine want to be in the classroom teaching students. Our students need to be in the classroom learning, not running drills that make them simulate something horrific that we should never have allowed to become their reality. That is our failure, and we shouldn't put the responsibility for fixing it on children and their teachers. Like I said, the Safe Schools Act has a nice name. It makes us feel like we are doing something about a situation that should not be tolerable to any of us anymore. But bill names and good feelings don't make schools safer. Good policy does, and this is not that. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. We have another speaker to be recognized. Representative Stacey Evans is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. It's complicated. I'm rising today in support of House Bill 147, but it's complicated. I agree with much of what my Democratic colleagues said up here today. So it's complicated. Our teachers and our kids have no choice, as I see it, but to plan to try to survive the very real threat that they face every day, that there could be a school shooting inside their building. That's their reality. They have no ability to change that reality. They only have the ability to decide how to plan for it and how to try to survive. And I want them to do that. So that's why I'm supporting this bill. Ladies and gentlemen, our babies and their teachers have no choice than to change their reality, but we do. We have so many options at our disposal to make this not the reality for our babies and their teachers. Those that came before me talked about some of the measures that are pending in this body right now that sit, not even willing to talk about it. I hear a lot of folks in here talk about the dangers of cancel culture and the dangers of shutting people down and not letting them speak. What do you think this is, ladies and gentlemen? You won't even let us talk about it. The #1 killer of our babies right now, gun violence. We're not even going to look at it? How did we let this happen? How did we become so afraid of the debate? I feel good in my position that I think we should have better background checks. We should have waiting periods. We should have gun storage laws. I feel confident that I'm right in that position. But I will always hear you out for you to tell me why you think I'm wrong. Why can you not do the same? What are you so afraid of? Do you know you're wrong and you don't want to think about it? You don't want to have to respond? That's not our job. Our job is to debate and discuss the hard questions, and this is a hard one. I think most schools are doing some form of these intruder drills, but again, I'm voting for this bill because I want to make sure they all do. because I want our babies and teachers to be as safe as they can. And I know the bill has an opt-out that school boards can make a provision for parents to opt their children out, and I hope that no one does that. Because if there is a school shooting and our children are able to, some of them, stay in a room and convince somebody that no one's in there, that's only going to work if everybody knows how to do it. Because the biggest part about these intruder drills is acting like you're not there, making it dark, and being quiet. I hope that most of you in this room have not had to talk with your children or your grandchildren about what these intruder drills look like, because it's heartbreaking, the reality. My daughter's turning 11 tomorrow. Happy early birthday, Ashley. She's in 5th grade. She's been doing these intruder drills since she was in kindergarten. And the first time she described it to me, I had to go upstairs because I wasn't going to cry in front of her. 5-year-olds finding the deepest corner in their classroom or a little crevice behind where they hang their coats and backpacks up, getting down as close to the ground as they can and being absolutely silent. The teacher putting black construction paper over the window that are on most school classroom doors so that it looks like no one's there, and then everybody being quiet. 5 years old. It gets worse, though. She didn't do these intruder drills when she was in pre-K. I have another child, a son. He's going to be 4 in a couple of weeks. He's been doing this since he was 2. 2. Church preschool. And they don't call it intruder drills for 2-year-olds. They tell them they're playing hide and seek. And they all have a specific place within their classroom that they are designated to go, their hiding place. And they go and they curl up there and they're told to be quiet. 2 years old. Again, this is their reality. And I want them to plan because they have no choice, but we do. We have created this reality. And we are not even willing to talk about ways that we can change it, and that's unacceptable. And I couldn't not come up here and say that. So while I will be voting for this bill, it's with a heavy heart for the reality that we've created for our children and our teachers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. We have one more speaker. Representative Hagan is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Friends and colleagues, I will keep this very short. As a former classroom teacher, I did feel that I wanted to come up and speak in support of this bill. We hear so much about doing something to keep guns and violence out of our school, but the fact is our schools are already gun-free zones. That doesn't seem to matter to an active shooter that wants to come in and harm our children and our teachers. There are already laws prohibiting violence on campus. It still happens. So those who don't respect laws or human life don't care about what laws we pass. They care about committing these heinous acts, and whether it's out of pure evil or some type of mental illness, it does not matter when our children are in harm's way. So I feel this bill is important because it gives our schools, it gives our children a tool so that if an unfortunate, horrible act were to happen at their school, they know what to do. And, of course students don't like that they have to do these drills. They shouldn't have to do these drills. They should be at our schools and they should be learning. But the sad fact is, these things do happen. I remember when I was teaching 4th grade in Lawrenceville when Columbine happened. The kids came to school the next day and they were scared. And we had to talk about this. They were already scared because they already knew that these things were happening. And so to not address it, I feel like, we could not address it. And I agree with those of you that don't think we should have to. But I think it's not in the best service of our children to not give them the tools and the preparation that they need should this happen. So I do ask for your favorable consideration of this bill, not because we want it, but because we need it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. We have no more speakers. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purpose does Representative Chokus rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Yes, sir. During the conversation and the presentation in the well, there was much talk about the mental effect of the children dealing with drills. And at this point, I may be dating myself, but we lived, as a child, I lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis. And we had to practice nuclear drills very often. And I realize how tragic an active shooter is, but when you're looking at world destruction in the eyes of a 5-year-old, it's pretty traumatic. I'm voting for this bill. I think it's a great bill, and I encourage everyone to support me in this. Thank you.
I'm sure the gentleman believes in what he states. For what purpose does Representative Lupton rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I have visited many principals in my district just last week, and I gave them just one question? We talked about a lot of things, but I gave them one question. And I said, if you could sit in front of the state legislature right now, which is in charge of the state budget, what would you ask for? And without hesitation, each one of them said money. Each one of them said money. They want money for more hands in the classroom and in the school to take care of our kids. They want money to pay bus drivers competitively so that buses don't have to run double runs and kids are late to school every day. They want money for school psychiatrists and psychologists to take care of our kids, and moreover, to take care of their staff. They said, please keep in mind, if we get some mental health folks, we can, that helps the staff too. So it is true that I took stock of my
Thank you for your
principles.
inquiry. If the lady will complete her inquiry.
Excuse me. Is it not true that I did such things?
Yes, it is. If the lady so states, I know she believes in what she so states.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does Representative Wilkerson rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that many of the discussions regarding drills deal with unannounced versus announced drills, and that a lot of the studies that discuss the traumatic effects of drills are referring to unannounced drills versus announced drills, and this bill does not mandate either one and leaves it up to the local school system to decide?
If the gentleman so states, I'm sure he's convinced of that fact. For what purpose does Representative Campbell rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it not true that this bill does not fund additional teachers, does not fund additional mental health care workers, does not fund gun safety education, does not fund Healthy Start food, does not fund education and literacy or other proactive measures designed to address the root causes of gun and gang or other school-related violence?
I'm sure the lady knows of what she speaks and has studied the matter in depth, and this body does cover a large, wide range of policy implications when we look at these matters. For what purpose does Representative Maynor rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true, Mr. Speaker, that my daughter's school had an active threat? And she told me that they did not have an active shooter drill, and so when they had to actually go through this active threat, They went across the street to the park. They'd never done that before, and she thought to herself it was chaotic. But when I told her about this bill, she said, well, maybe if we do that, it won't be so chaotic the next time. Is that not true?
If the lady so states. For what purpose does Representative Hutchinson rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true, Mr. Speaker, that as a mental health professional, my relatives, and specifically my father, 2 of my aunts, have confided in me that the Cuban Missile Crisis, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when they had to practice these drills, they're still triggered when they enter historical buildings such as Ebenezer Baptist Church as a reminder of that time.
I'm sure the lady knows of what she speaks. We have a couple of more, and then we're going to vote on this bill. I think most of you have already voted. For what purposes Chair Lady Camp rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that if someone doesn't know what they're supposed to do in a crisis, they won't know what to do in a crisis?
Well, I'm sure the lady believes that, and it does make sense. So thank you for your inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm taking one more inquiry, and that's Representative Cannon's recognized for what purpose does Representative Cannon rise?
A parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Thank you. Is it not true, as a preschool teacher currently in the state of Georgia on leave for legislative session, I'm deeply concerned that this bill is coupled with anti-gang language, and maybe if it was decoupled, there might be different votes on this bill?
I'm sure the lady knows what she speaks of, and she's read the bill thoroughly. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 148, the nays 20. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The clerk will read the caption to HB 480. HB 480.
House Bill 480 by Representative Franklin and the 160th to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 9 and Title 34 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to workers' compensation so as to change certain provisions related to workers' compensation benefits. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Industry and Labor, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Well, you look familiar, Representative. Wasn't sure if your first bill or not, but it's not your first bill. I thought I remembered that. You did an excellent job on your first one. Chair recognizes Representative Franklin from down in Bullock County to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Assembly, I rise for House Bill 480. This is an annual agency bill from the State Board of Workers' Comp. It has the support of the business community, insurers, claimant lawyers, defense attorneys, and all other groups within the Advisory Council of the State Board of the Workers' Compensation. This bill cleans up language in regards to potential dependency benefits where there has been a compensatable death on the job. It also allows for the increase in max benefit risk or rates in the injury of a job, whereas the maximum rate moves to $725 to $800 on a complete injury on the job, and it moves from $483 to $533 on a partial injury on the job. It also raises the maximum death benefit for a sole dependent spouse for $290,000 to $320,000. Again, this is an agency bill that has the full support of all engaged and in the development of the bill, and I ask for your favorable support and will take any questions at this time.
The gentleman has a couple of questions. To your far left, the gentleman from the 166th, Chairman Petrie, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I
my
yield.
Friend. Thank you, my friend. Listen, I think you know from being in committee, I support much of what's in this bill, but is it not true that this bill is a massive expansion, a dramatic expansion of benefits to now new meretricious relationships, those without ceremonial marriage, which would begin at 3 months? Is that not true?
I would not say it's a massive expansion, but there is an expansion, yes.
It is an expansion, and
Yes.
in unceremonial marriage at 3 months.
Well, it's an expansion for the dependents.
Potentially.
It has really nothing to do with marriage, in my point of view, but it has to do with the dependency of the individual.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I yield.
Is it not true that a majority of Republicans in this committee voted no to this measure?
If that's what you think, I don't agree with that, but I don't know.
It's pretty clear to the record, sir. There were 4 no votes out of 6 Republicans. But thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I just want to add that there were 2 of those voters in that committee that said they would have changed that vote if they had to vote again.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
I do yield.
The committee from whence the legislation came, the gentleman from the 157th, Chairman Werkeiser.
Thank you.
Offering some clarity here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Is it not true that there are 11 Republicans on this committee, and I think the board will reflect that 9 of them will vote yes. So that's the vast majority, as so often happens in committees. We heard the bill the day before, and the second day came in to take a vote, and by the time we finished, a lot of those had moved and went to other committees. To the gentleman's point about the 3 months, that is a minimum, number one, and number two, it is not a standard. It is a minimum for consideration, and we have 3 judges appointed by the governor to hear these cases on a case-by-case. To characterize this as a major expansion policy, you do realize that there's probably less than 20 deaths. Fortunately, that's a very low number in the workplace in the state of Georgia. Out of between 2 and 3 million workers, we have usually less than 20 deaths. So to vote against a policy where 98% of the bill you agree on, but except for those 2 words, I hope that, is it not true that I think a yes vote on this bill would be great?
It is that the gentleman speaks.
He found that question right there at the end there, Representative. I was looking for it, but I was having problems finding it. Whip Park has a question for the gentleman in the well, if he'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield? I yield. Is it not true that this bill passed with bipartisan support out of the committee, with every single Democrat voting in favor of a compromise that was carefully tailored by the advisory committee that results in an increase in the weekly benefits for workers?
It is that the gentleman speaks.
Is it not? Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, I yield.
Is it not further true that when we're talking about the 90-day time frame, that's just current law that reflects and is not changed, and if that there are concerns regarding the 90-day time frame, that a new piece of legislation could be introduced to perhaps address that issue that really has nothing to do with this compromise piece of legislation?
That is correct.
Thank you.
The gentleman yield for one more question.
I yield.
I think it'll clarify everything we've been talking about here. The gentleman from the 168th House District down on the coast, Representative Williams, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will the gentleman yield?
I yield.
It has been very interesting that it seems like some of your brethren are a little disturbed. Is it not also true that there are many Democrats that certainly invite a friends and family raid on a new Toyota after the session?
I hope so.
Well, maybe I was wrong on that clarity part. I thought he was going to preach when he got in the brother in there, but I wasn't sure what he was going to do. The gentleman has no further questions.
Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purpose does Representative Maynard rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true, as a physical therapist, I told the speaker last year that the State Board of Workers' Compensation does not have a physical therapist on the board, and most workers' comp patients, 9 times out of 10, they go see a physical therapist. Is that not true?
I'm sure if the lady so states, she knows that to be true. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 154, the nays 15. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The clerk will read the caption to HB 440-440.
House Bill 440 by Representative Stoner, the 40th, and others to be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 16 to Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to student health in elementary and secondary education, so as to authorize public and private schools to stock a supply of undesignated, ready-to-use glucagon. This bill having referred to the Committee on Public Health. And that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Well, the chair is about to recognize Representative Stoner. Is this your first bill, sir? Not quite his first bill. I'll let him explain that when he comes to the well. The chair recognizes Representative Stoner to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No, this was not my first bill in this chamber. My first bill in this chamber was in 2003, and I had the honor of following the flag referendum debate after 6 hours. It was my first bill in this well. But yes, this is my first bill coming back since I've returned to the chamber. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I come to the well today to talk about House Bill 440, which deals with an issue that we've done for other children on other issues, medical issues that they have at school. Specifically, what this bill will do, it will allow school systems to stock undesignated, that's the term that's used, which is really unprescribed, glucagon pens. Sometimes they're called glucagon kits. This is actually an example of one. This is a training kit my wife does with children, by the way, as you all have probably known from previous conversations I've had here in the well. You know, we're advocates on diabetes issues. So this is an example of what the schools would stock, is something like this at school. And currently the situation in the schools is simply this. We have a diabetes management program that is required by the state for children who have type 1 diabetes, those who are insulin dependent. If for some reason that child they're prescribed a glucagon pen, as we call it, this right here that they keep on them, and every type 1 diabetic is prescribed that, be they a child or an adult. But as we know, children have a tendency to lose things. I think we all have experienced that, and they do lose their medication on occasion. So what this is going to allow is a school to have the authority, not mandated, but the authority to purchase these kits, these pens, and stock them. So if a child is at school and they have what's called a severe hypoglycemic episode, meaning your glucose is dropping very fast, and guess what? Orange juice and cookies isn't going to stop it, okay? And you're going to need to get your glucagon pen out, and usually someone else has to administer it, because if you're in that state, you're really not aware of what's going on around you. And so if the child has lost their pen, we have a situation, even if there's another child with a glucagon pen, let's say it's prescribed to them, it is against the law for that school nurse or that trained personnel to take that other child's glucagon pen and give it to this child to hopefully prevent potentially brain damage or save their life. So what this bill does, it basically states now, again, as I said, that it's going to allow schools to have the authority to acquire these and stock them. It authorizes pharmacies and doctors, and those are also allowed to also prescribe for schools. Simply put, this bipartisan piece of legislation is going to save lives. We already do this for EpiPens, albuterol, and Narcan is already something. And this is just one thing that, for whatever reason, we haven't done yet. So, Mr. Speaker, this time I'm happy to answer any questions if I have any.
You have a couple of questions. The gentleman will yield.
I yield.
Chair Lady Houston has a...
No, I was making a page. I thought I was getting
Well, you got to pass on that one. I was worried about you. I can just go ahead and tell you now. I was wondering. Representative Jasmine Clark, to your left, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, I yield.
So this is actually a serious question.
Yes.
Does anything in this require the schools to keep a list of students that are type 1 or who normally have a prescription for glucagon that might have just left theirs at home or dropped it on the bus or something?
This bill doesn't specifically do that. Under the Student Diabetes Management Program that the schools are required to do with each student that's type 1, where they actually sit down with the parents, with their physician, and basically have a plan for that particular student. Now, as to the fact under that plan, as I understand it, that currently operates, there's nothing requiring the parents to notify the school that their child is a type 1 diabetic. You would hope that the parents would do that. But this bill has nothing to do with that. We're actually putting this under the current state diabetes management plan, as we do now with other things with a type 1 diabetic child.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman, further yield.
Yes, I do.
Representative Bennett, right out in front of you, has a question. Ladies recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Is it not true that without this life-saving measure that the child's life could be put in danger for threatening the life of a child?
Yes, it could. In fact, the consequences is ultimately potentially death, or even if it's not death, brain damage.
Thank you for this great bill.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, further yield.
Yes, I do.
To your extreme left, I figured y'all could have solved this one while y'all were over there chatting. One of your seatmates, Chairman Stevens, has a question. The gentleman's recognized for a question.
Gentleman yield?
Yes.
As we've talked about earlier for the rest of the body, isn't it not true that we've done very similar life-saving scenarios in this body for narcotic antagonists, for kids that may have consumed opiates, for example, by placing that over the counter, and more specifically for these EpiPens, whenever they show up at school, and we placed them in the school so that whenever there's a bee sting or something, that these kids' life can be saved.
Gentleman knows what he speaks.
You have one more question.
I yield.
If you'll yield for one more. Chair recognizes Representative Maynard for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Stoner, do you yield for a question?
I yield.
You mentioned that the schools will be able to stockpile the glucagon pens. And two questions to that. Do they need a prescription? How do they get them without a prescription? And the second question is, if students don't have insurance and they literally can't get the glucagon pens, does that mean the schools can now be the pharmacy?
To your first question, actually that's what this bill does. It's authorizing pharmacies and those who are also able to prescribe medication. Now they're allowed to prescribe medication that's not prescribed to an individual, but to a school to be able to stock this type of medication. Just a note on that, this medication is good for 2 years on the shelf at room temperature, so this is not something they have to put in a refrigerator or anything like that. To the second part about, will the schools become the pharmacy, in a sense, I think is your point. No, that's not likely what this is going to happen. Generally speaking, as dealing with this issue, trying to get folks who don't have, say, health insurance and getting access, there's a lot of groups that are providing that to children in particular, something I work on outside of this chamber. But in a sense, in an emergency situation, yes, it's going to be the pharmacy for that type 1 child if they don't have a glucagon pen with them for whatever reason. We're not going to sit there and say, I'm sorry, where's your prescription? If they just don't have it, the priority is to save that child's life. But no, this is not going to be, in a sense, a pharmacy for those children in that sense, in a normal situation.
Gentleman has no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask for favorable considered support of this bipartisan piece of legislation. I yield the well. Thank you.
The gentleman has done a good job and he's yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the bill is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 169, the nays were 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to HB 220220, HB 220?
House Bill 220 by Representative Lever to the 123rd and others, to be entitled an act to amend Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to property so as to provide for a means of enforcement of condominium and property owners associations, instrument, rules, and regulations. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Leverett, are you ready? You're recognized to present the bill. Representative Leverett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, it's my pleasure to present you with House Bill 220 today. This deals with that much beloved institution in this room of HOAs and condominium owners associations. The bill addresses a Court of Appeals decision from about a year and a half ago that ruled that before a HOA or COA gets injunctive relief, that is basically an order allowing them to cure any deficiency or defect, they first have to seek their legal remedies. And that is precisely correct black letter law, but the result of that in this particular case would be somewhat perverse because it would require the homeowners association or the condominium owners association to try to fix the thing itself first, to go on your property and remedy whatever fact or circumstance violates covenants or some other rule. So what this bill tries to do is change that in two ways. First of all, it does provide that they don't have to exercise legal remedies first. That is, they don't have to use self-help, which is generally permitted by the declaration and the other condominium and homeowners association documents. So that means they don't go on your property first. They first go to court and they have to get an order. That serves two purposes. First, it gives the homeowner an opportunity to be heard by a third party, by a judge, as to whether the action the homeowners association or condo association is taking is reasonable in the first place. And second, if the court does find they're being reasonable, they get an order that allows them to get a deputy sheriff to come so that everybody can stay safe, because there have been instances where people have gotten shot in these sort of interactions. Additionally, at the request of the Realtors Association, we have further limited the authority of the HOAs and COAs by requiring they provide you notice and a right to cure. They have to notify you of the alleged problem first and allow you a chance to fix it yourself if you want to. So if you decide maybe you don't have to live with the concrete statue hand-painted of Shania Twain in your front yard, you can remove it on your own if you want to, or the chainsaw stump sculpture. You can take it away yourself before they come and take it. So I believe this, while it is intended to make things simpler, it actually does limit the ability of HOAs and COAs to enforce their covenants without allowing homeowners an opportunity to be heard and to state their position to a third party before they take action. So that's the bill in essence, and I would yield for any questions, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman does have a question. Does he yield?
I yield.
To your left in the bag, Representative Wilkerson has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield, yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question, I guess. HOAs, in my experience, are very powerful entities already. So right now you're saying that, I think this is a mailbox case that you said in committee that has sparked this. So we're going to change state law because I guess the person didn't want to fix their mailbox. But this applies to anything. This third party, is that a free third party is my first question.
Well,
when you go to court, is it free?
It's a judge. It is free. In the sense that you don't pay extra, you've already paid for that when you write your check on April 15th.
Okay, let me rephrase that. So if the HOA, does the gentleman yield further?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, HOA decides to file this injunctive relief in the courts. They assume I'm going to hire an attorney, which then you will be billed back, or the HOA will be billed back. Is that not true?
I would assume so, yes.
Okay, so there is a cost to either does the gentleman further yield?
I yield.
One last question. So either way, typically in these cases, if you go to the courts, your HOA is going to incur costs, which means everybody in that neighborhood incurs a cost because of a bad mailbox, or you get the money back from the person that you're saying that you can't get it back from. Would it not be better to just go ahead and use to update your covenants to make it so that you don't have to provide immediate relief so you can go to the courts without speeding up the process?
Well, in this case, the covenant's already provided that, and the court still ruled, as it's entitled to, that we can't always tell the court what legal rules it does and doesn't apply. I would further submit that while I'm sympathetic to the concerns the gentleman has about HOAs and condominium associations, I don't live in such a community myself. When you buy a lot in that community, you are subjecting yourself to that governance structure, presumably for the benefit of everybody in that subdivision. So I believe it's a little, I would just say this is not something that people should be surprised about after they've bought a property in a subdivision that's subject to covenants that creates an HOA or a COA. It's part of what comes with it. There are certain benefits and there are certain costs associated with it. But I believe this bill actually makes sure that the HOA is allowing, or that you have an opportunity as a homeowner to be heard by a judge as to whether that HOA is being reasonable or not. True, it will be with some cost, but I would submit that if someone owns property in a subdivision, they signed up under those rules.
Gentlemen, yield for one more question, and then we have a speaker.
Yes, I will yield.
Representative Bazemore, to your left, is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say thank you for the bill. I have been the president of my homeowner association for years, and so I know both sides. And so I appreciate the fact that you are giving individuals a voice. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate the question.
If the gentleman will take one more, I did.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Minority Party Whip, Representative Park, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield, yes, sir.
So just for purposes of clarification, this would provide homeowners more rights than under current law.
That's my position. I believe it does, yes, sir.
And does the gentleman yield for one more
yield,
question?
yes, sir.
So on lines 84 and I think in another spot, it would require HOAs to provide homeowners at least 10 days notice before they provide any further action, which is a right that homeowners currently do not have.
That's correct. They may have it in their condominium or HOA declaration, but they don't have it by law, and this would give it to them across the board.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you for the question.
That completes any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your consideration. I would ask your favorable vote on HB 220, and I'll yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. We do have a speaker. Representative Davis is asked to speak to the bill. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had to stand up here because House Bill 220 gives condominium and property owner associations injunctive relief. And it says that as long as it doesn't violate reasonable rules and regulations, right? So what is reasonable rules and regulations? Let me give you some examples of what I have and others have experienced. You have some condominium owners. Now, they're late on their assessment fees, according to the association. And you know what the association does? They go and they get a tow truck to tow their cars out of their county into another county. And they say, well, we'll give you your car back once you pay this fee, your assessment fee. Now, the average person would say, that's not reasonable. I had someone to call me and said that that is what was done to them. I said, wait a minute, get off the phone. Call the police and tell them that your car was stolen, because nobody should have their property taken without due process. Would you say that this is reasonable? That association thought that it was reasonable to take somebody's property. Is it reasonable when it comes down to insurance payments? We have a law that says that you have to acquire insurance. I'm talking about the condominiums and the property association. Now, we're getting ready to give more power to the property owned in the condominium associations. And of course, they're going to give back to the homeowners and the condo owners two things that would help them. What I am saying to you is that the abuses that are going on right now are so profound that there is no way we should give more power to the property owners in the condominium association, the property owner association and the condominium associations, without first correcting some of these abuses that are going on. They have used insurance payments. They get the money, and then they take the money instead of doing repairs. I'm talking about your elderly, your disabled, your veterans. I had a disabled veteran contact me and say that he filed an insurance claim with an association, and that association took his money, did not do the repairs. They paid the water bill. And then they turned around and repaired a totally different person's property. I'm trying to give you some examples of what a number of elderly, disabled, and veterans, property owners, homeowners are experiencing as we speak. The worst thing we can do is give more power to these associations without correcting some of these problems. Now, we filed House Bill 303 to address some of these abuses. I have one ask for those of you who are doing this bill. You have the votes. You have the power. Please remember those elderly citizens, those elderly and disabled and the veterans that are suffering as we speak because of the bad actors. I'm not talking about the people who are doing right. I'm talking about those bad actors that have gone and totally violated and abused on the name of reasonable rules and regulations. Please commit to doing the law or moving forward with some of the legislation we have already submitted under House Bill 303 and correct these abuses. We don't want no more of our seniors, our elderly, and our veterans to suffer. They deserve the American dream, just like anybody else here in Georgia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purpose does Representative Ridley rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that this bill actually does protect the homeowner and not the homeowners association by actually giving rules and regulations that they have to go through before they can act?
If the gentleman so states. For what purpose does Representative Jasmine Clark rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that while this does allow homeowners the opportunity to go to court, they could very well be stuck with attorney's fees and other things trying to fight in court against a homeowners association?
If the lady so states. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 144, the nays 22. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The clerk will read the caption to HB 237. HB 237.
House Bill 237 by Representative Hagan in the 156th and others to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 3, Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state symbols so as to designate the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby as the official soapbox derby of the state of Georgia. This bill having referred to the Committee on Special Rules, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Representative Hagan is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Friends and fellow members, if you are tired of hearing me talk about the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby, today is your lucky day, because with a favorable vote on House Bill 237, I commit to you that I will be speaking about the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby significantly less than I have been for the past few weeks. I'm not going to promise that I'll never bring it up again, but I promise you less talk. All right, so House Bill 237 was simply named the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby, which is run out of Lyons, as Georgia's official soapbox derby. And in case you're not familiar with the soapbox derby racing, this is a youth program for ages 7 through 20, where they usually work with a mentor to build their soapbox derby car, and then they race it down a track. Drivers actually sit in the cars. And I do want to clear up some confusion that several people have asked about. This is not Pinewood Derby racing. The Pinewood Derby cars are about this big, and the children make their car out of this block of wood, and then they race it down the metal track. Soapbox Derby racing is in a much larger car where the driver actually sits in the car and races it down a hill. So just want to make sure everybody's clear on the difference. All right, so the Southeast Georgia Derby began in 1992 with 20 cars competing in only one age division. But 31 years later, the race has grown to an average of 50 drivers competing in 3 different age groups, age divisions, and one division that is specifically for drivers with intellectual and developmental disabilities called the Super Kids division. Young people from around Georgia and several states descend on Lions for about 16 races every year to qualify for the World Championship, which is held every summer in Akron, Ohio. So, with a stated mission of building knowledge and character, creating meaningful experiences through collaboration, fair and honest competitions, and using a STEM curriculum, I feel like this bill is something that we can all feel excited about supporting. So, by making the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby Georgia's official derby, we highlight a program that has a long history of positive influences on the young people in our communities, and we also encourage others to participate. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the bill, and I'll be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Well, the lady, I thought she made a nice announcement when she said that this would be the last time she spoke about this, but Any number of people want to discuss this issue with you. So we're going to take a couple of questions. I would have to do about half the house at least to answer all the questions, y'all. So y'all can meet in the ante room when we adjourn. So
Yes, sir.
would the lady yield for a question or two?
I will.
Chair recognizes Chairman Wiedauer to your right for a question.
Gentlelady yield.
I do.
So we're speaking about the Southeast Georgia soapbox, correct?
We are.
Can you tell me where the world championship for soapbox derby is?
It's held in Akron, Ohio every July.
Very good. Follow-up question?
Sure.
Given the nature of this subject, would you consider this a cleanup bill?
I'm not sure what you mean by that question.
That was bad. That was bad. So last question.
Soap. Soap.
Okay, I'm a little slow today. At this late hour, but yeah, thank you for your question. I think that good one.
The lady yield for a real question.
I would love to yield for a real question.
Representative Buckner to your left is recognized for a question.
Does the gentlelady yield?
Yes, ma'am.
If the General Assembly were to approve sports betting, could we bet on soapbox derbies?
No, ma'am, I do not believe you could. Thanks for the question.
Well, lady yield for a couple more.
Yes, sir, I will.
The gentleman from the 24th, Representative Barrett, is recognized for a question. There he's right in front of you.
Does the gentlelady yield?
I do.
Is it not true that our very own Representative Devin Seaball was recognized as the Soapbox Derby Director of the Year by the All-American Soapbox Derby? And is it not also true that he was the director of the Marietta Soapbox Derby for 10 years, sending 30 local champions to Akron, Ohio to race against the best racers in the world?
I did not know those facts about Representative Seaball, but I am thrilled to know that given that he is a co-sponsor of this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's why he likes to drive those ambulances so fast. Yes, no doubt. Representative Park Cannon is recognized if the lady will yield.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, and you yield.
I do.
Just two questions. So it looks like this is a nonprofit organization.
That's right.
That we would be supporting officially with the state support. Is that? Do we normally do that? Is there any others that we do that for?
There are no appropriations to be made in accordance with this bill. This would just encourage economic development, tourism, to promote the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby as a means of increasing tourism, and it also would designate it as the official Soapbox Derby of the state. That's all that it does.
And do you yield for just
Sure.
one more question? What kind of minority participation is in this bill, meaning African Americans, women, people of different genders?
Anyone of any race, male, female, doesn't matter. As long as they're between the proper ages, they are welcome to participate in the Soapbox Derby.
Okay, but do you know a
I
percentage?
do not have any numbers for you there on that.
Lady yield for at least one more.
Yes, sir. I will.
Representative Ridley, who's from the 6th District of Georgia to your extreme right, has a question.
Good morning. Does gentlelady yield?
I do yield.
Since I actually read the bill, I actually know what's in the bill. So, but there is one thing that I don't know what's in the bill. Can you explain to me? You said soapboxes, and you drive these cars. Is that correct?
You do drive these cars.
Well, how many soapboxes does it take to build a car like big enough for me and Representative McDonald to ride in?
More than are currently available in the state of Georgia.
The lady will yield for one more question. It comes from a veteran driver. A veteran driver. Representative Seaball is recognized for a question to your left.
Does the lady yield?
Of course.
Is it not true that many NASCAR Cup champions started their career racing soapbox derby?
I'm not aware of that. Is that true?
And will you yield for one more question?
Absolutely.
Is it not true that two of my children raced in Akron, Ohio, and my One of my children came in second place in the World Championships in 2005.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I can see why you're awarded all those accolades that Representative Carter mentioned earlier. Mr. Speaker, if those are all of the questions, I would absolutely love to yield this will and ask for your favorable consideration of this bill. Thank you.
The lady has yielded the well. She has about a dozen more, but y'all can see her after we adjourn. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Those are. For what purpose does Representative Al Williams rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it not true?
Do you have an inquiry?
I do. A parliamentary inquiry, please.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I support this bill because as a youngster reading Boy's Life magazine in the late 50s, I wanted to participate and was told that I could not get an application because I was the wrong color. And I want any kid who wants to run in the soapbox derby to be able to do so.
Sure, the gentleman knows what he states, and the lady answered positively about the participation in the soapbox now. Thank you for the question. For what purpose does Representative Wade rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that NASCAR Hall of Famer Bill Elliott and also his son Chase Elliott from District 9, who I represent, support this bill, but also want to encourage folks to consider tourism about young racers and older racers in Northeast Georgia as well?
If the gentleman so states, we know that Dawsonville is the center of the universe when it comes to winters, especially those two guys that you mentioned. I've heard of them. I think that's Wild Bill and Chase, his sons. So, good folks. For what purpose does Representative Holly rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that my seatmate, Dewey McClain, just told me he was the champion of soapbox derbies, but I think if he tried to restart his career, he might just be all washed up?
If the gentleman so states. For what purpose does Representative Williamson rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that although the representative did a fantastic job of explaining her measure, she failed to remind this House of Representatives that this is her first bill, House of Representatives bill that she's carried in this chamber? Is that not true?
If the gentleman so states, your first bill. You sure have been to the well a lot over the years, a couple of years, to be your first bill. So we'll see if you get congratulated. They may be changing the board. We have one final parliamentary inquiry. For what purpose does Representative Bentley rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that I am hungry and ready to go to lunch, and this bill has nothing to do with the funeral home business, does it?
If the lady so speaks, shall this bill now pass? We've done that. Y'all have got me mixed up now. Your first bill is almost mine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 168, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is thereby passed. For what purpose does Representative Chairman Hatchett rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
I sure am glad everybody got off their soapbox so we can go have lunch.
The gentleman certainly believes what he's speaking to. We have a little more, couple other opportunities to tend to some business of the House. So we're going to recognize the Majority Leader for the purpose of offering a resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House adopt House Resolution 280.
The clerk will read the resolution.
House Resolution 280 by Representative Estration of the 104th, calling a joint session of the House of Representatives and the Senate for the purpose of hearing a message from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, inviting each other justice of the Supreme Court and each judge of the Court of Appeals to be present at the joint session.
The chair recognizes the Majority Leader to speak to the resolution.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Important business before lunch is, I'm sure, to set Chairman Leverett, Chairman Gunner, and Chairman Smith's mind at ease as to when the state of the judiciary will be. So it will be March 8th at 11 a.m. here in this House chamber. Would ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. For what purpose does Representative Burchett rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that the rules be temporarily suspended so that a bill can be read and assigned for the first time.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Burchett of the 176 to be entitled an Act to amend Part 1 of Article 4, Chapter 12 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to management of budgetary and financial affairs.
On the gentleman's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended so a bill can be read for the first time and assigned to committee, is there objection? Budget and fiscal oversight, Budget and Fiscal Affairs oversight. Members, we have some afternoon orders. And then we're going to take up a little more business that the Senate is sending over to us. So if you be patient and listen up to the afternoon orders, give us your attention. We'll continue with our business for the day, and we'll be done shortly. Representative Kendricks is recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So you have on your desk a Facebook training that we're doing through the Working Family Caucus on Wednesday from 12 to 1 o'clock. We are serving lunch, so if you're interested in upping your Facebook and IG game, please join us for that training on Wednesday. Just tap me on the shoulder since we are not going to lunch as I had hoped, and I will add your name to the list. So if you're interested in that Facebook or Instagram training, just come over to my desk and let me know. Thank you.
Chairman Bonner is recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, there's been a packet placed on your desk from our folks over the Department of Veterans Services. It's a great packet of information which includes the address and phone number of your local Veteran Service office. I would encourage each one of you to become familiar where that office is and stop in for a visit. It also provides a lot of information on the different services that the department provides, as well as the benefits that our service members enjoy at being a veteran here in the state of Georgia. So take some time, please, to read this and take it with you as a reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Brad Thomas is recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is just a reminder that tomorrow is Engineers Day at the Capitol. Please come to join us in room 230 Capitol from 8 to 10 a.m. for chicken biscuits and to mingle with local professionals who design the infrastructure we live, work, and play in every day. Thank you. I yield the well.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions?
Honoring the life and memory of Teresa Louise Skeppel. Honoring the life and memory of Bishop James H. Morton. Recognizing and commending Dr. Mallory Millender in honor of Black History Month. Recognizing and commending Danny Glover. Commending Susan McCauley for honoring the memory of Rosa Parks through the book she authored. Recognizing and commending Ms. Devlin Taylor. Congratulating the Sons for winning the 2022-2023 Peachtree Corners Baptist Church 9 and 10-year-old boys basketball championship. Recognizing and commending Ambassador Andrew Young. Recognizing and commending Dr. Bobby Jones. Commending Alexandria Papadopoulou and inviting her to be recognized. Congratulating and commending Cheryl Denise Davis for receiving the 2023 Yellow Rose Nikki T. Randall Servant Leader Award. Supporting the improvement of care for the atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Noonan Coweta Chamber of Commerce. Commending Kappa Alpha Phi fraternity and recognizing March 2nd, 2023 as Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Day at the state capitol. Congratulating and commending Henrietta Antoinin for receiving the 2023 Yellow Rose Nikki T. Randall Service Leader Award. Recognizing and commending the accomplishments of Charles Head. Commending Gwinnett Chat Outreach. Congratulating and commending Dr. Tamika Williams for receiving the 2023 Yellow Rose Nikki T. Randall Service Leader Award, recognizing and commending the contributions of the Asian American Advocacy Fund and Asian American Advancing Justice, recognizing and commending Minister Dara O'Brien for his outstanding public service, recognizing and commending Javelin Buford, recognizing and commending Dr. Lois Keith, commending the Georgia peanut industry and recognizing March 2023 as Georgia Peanut Month at the state capitol. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privileged resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. We'll move on to announcements, so if you'll give your undivided attention to the members in the well. Chair Lady Darlene Taylor is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today at 2 o'clock, the Insurance, Life and Health Subcommittee will be meeting in CAP 341, Life Insurance and Health Insurance Subcommittee, 341 at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Is that 2 o'clock?
It's 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Chairman Shaw Blackman is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ways and Means Subcommittee meetings will have a delayed start of 30 minutes, so we'll get started at 1:30. Thank you.
Chair Lady Sharon Cooper is recognized for an announcement.
Excuse me, are we having chairman's lunch? Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Public and Community Health Committee, our time, we will back it to 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock in room 606. We will be taking up the mental health bill, so I hope everybody will, on our committee, will make an effort to be there. So 2 o'clock. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Leader Chuck Estration is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There will be a chairman's lunch upon adjournment in room 403. Thank you.
Representative Anulowicz is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you. The Cobb County Legislative Delegation is going to be meeting in room 514 of the LOB. It'll probably be a short meeting because most of us are heading on to committee meetings after that, but Sheriff Owens is going to be there and lunch is provided, so you can drop in, say hello to the sheriff, and be on your way for the rest of the meetings this afternoon. Thank you.
Chairman Lumsden is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There will be a meeting of the Full House Insurance Committee in the morning, 8 a.m., CLOB 406. Full House Insurance Committee, CLOB 406, 8 a.m. Thank you.
Chairman Dickey is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Agriculture and Consumer Affairs will have their meeting this afternoon at 2 o'clock, 4:15 CLOB. I know many of you on this committee have other conflicts, but it will be the only committee where peach ice cream will be served this afternoon. So, Mr. Speaker, I know you are maybe an ex officio. I'll make sure I say one for you.
What time and where?
2 o'clock. CLOB, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. See you there. Chairman Saines is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Special rules will have a delayed start to 1:30 today in 501 CLOB. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Tarvin is recognized for an announcement.
Property and Casualty Subcommittee of Insurance will meet at 2 p.m. CLOB 515. 515, CLOB 515 at 2 o'clock.
Representative Jasmine Clark is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of GLBC, remember we are wearing the beautiful colors of Africa tomorrow. Don't forget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Tran is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The DeKalb County delegation will meet upon adjournment in room 510 CLOB. Thank you.
Representative Parrish is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Georgia Entertainment Caucus will be inducting a few people on tomorrow, and Ambassador Andy Young will be inducted. So we have a resolution for his honor, and we would like for anyone that wants to sign on to please stop by the clerk's office and do so. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Matthew Gamble has an announcement. He's recognized to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, the fellowship will meet in the House Judiciary Committee room. I invite all members to attend. Thank you.
Yeah. Members, I'll tell you why I was keeping you in suspense. As you all know, we immediately transmitted the amended budget back to the Senate as our first order of business for the day, and we were waiting for them to return it, but they're on some other business over there, and they've not gotten to it. So we're going to move on. We have a lot of committee meetings this afternoon, so we're going to recognize birthdays at this standpoint. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for hanging with us, but it is what it is, so we'll move on. We have birthdays today. Representative Matthew Gamble has a birthday. Where is he? There he is. Representative Vance Smith has a birthday. Representative Smith, happy birthday. Representative Buddy Deloach. Where is he? There he is, right in the middle. Chairman Buddy Deloach. He's 39 for the 30th time or something like that. 40. I wasn't going there. Happy birthday. Let's give our pages. We've had pages all day, and they've done a great job. We're going to ask them to come down front, have a picture, give the pages a hand, and if you have a page, come down and join them. The majority leader is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Tuesday, February 28, 2023.
On the motion of the majority leader that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Tuesday, February the 28th. I think that's the last day of February in 2023. All those in favor will say aye. I'm going to hang around. All those opposed say no. Oh, that was very clear. The ayes have it. We're adjourned. Thank y'all for being here.